Welcome to Hannity and Colmes. Rich Lowry sitting in for Sean once again. Nice to see you again, Rich.
See you again.
And we get right to the big developing story tonight. The Obama transition team has released its long-awaited report detailing their contacts with embattled Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. The report seems generally consistent with details leaked over the weekend, specifically that the president-elect did not have any personal contact with the governor or his office with respect to the open Senate seat. But the report also says the Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel did discuss the seat with Governor Blagojevich in one or two phone conversations. A little bit different than what we heard over the weekend. Was that Emanuel then we heard spoke to the governor just once. It's also worth noting that from the report it appears that Emanuel did have several conversations with the governor's chief of staff about the open seat, and even suggested names beyond that of Valerie Jarrett, which we already knew. Among other people, the names he suggested included Congressman Jesse Jackson, Jr. You will remember that it has been suggested that Jackson was one of the candidates whose supporters may have tried to bribe the governor. Jackson has denied that, but his own attorney admits that the congressman was indeed the so-called candidate number 5 named by the federal prosecutor. There's also a bizarre story in that report concerning Dr. Eric Whitaker, a close friend and confidant of the president-elect. Whitaker was approached by Deputy Governor Luanner Peters, who said that the governor had heard recommendations from other people about who should fill the seat and wanted to know who spoke on behalf of the president-elect. According to the report, Whitaker told the deputy governor at the behest of Mr. Obama that nobody spoke on his behalf and that he was not interested in, quote, dictating the process. Now, it's important to remember that this report was not prepared by independent investigators, but by the Obama transition team themselves. Joining us tonight with analysis, Fox News contributor Karl Rove. Karl, welcome back. How you doing?
Fabulous. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. I'm not offended by that, by the way. It's okay with this liberal to say Merry Christmas. Let me ask you about what we just said and the transition team report. Do you see any problems here?
Well, no, but I see some interesting points. I have 5 takeaways from this. First of all, Barack Obama was more involved in this process than he led on 2 weeks ago at his news conference. On the 9th of November, he has a meeting with people in which they agree upon a list, and he directs Rahm Emanuel to give that list to Blagojevich. Nothing wrong with that, nothing unethical, but I wish he'd sort of laid that out to the American people at his first news conference. Second, and perhaps most interesting to me, is Rahm Emanuel offers up Valerie Jarrett as a possibility to Blagojevich before talking to Barack Obama. The report says that he talked to Blagojevich on the 6th, between the 6th and the 8th of November. That's before the meeting on the 9th where the president-elect says, here's my list of names, and I want you, Rahm Emanuel, or maybe they agree at the end that Rahm Emanuel is the right person to pass it on to Blagojevich. Whatever way it happens, before that meeting, why is Rahm Emanuel recommending Valerie Jarrett? Is he advocating her? Did he just check with Obama? Was he trying to get a erstwhile, competitor within the White House on a separate track to become the United States Senator? The third interesting thing to me is, where did Rod Blagojevich get the idea that he was only going to get appreciation only if no one had a discussion about some quid pro quo? And finally, I just raise a question as to whether or not this was wise on Rahm Emanuel's part at a point after the 9th of November when he's going to be the chief of staff, if when the question of reaching out to the governor of Illinois about a political question, if it wouldn't be better as a prospective chief of staff for him to say, you know what, a chief of staff shouldn't be doing that kind of politics. Let's figure out who else could pass that message on.
All right, all that interesting analysis, Karl, but obviously the real issue here is whether or not there was a quid pro quo, whether or not one was offered. Certainly what we know that one was not accepted. In that line, as you mentioned, about, well, I'm getting his appreciation. So there seems nothing condemning in this report.
Well, we've known that right from the beginning. If Fitzgerald had listened in on these conversations and had found something that involved the Obama camp making an arrangement with Blagojevich, we would have known about it in the original complaint. But it is interesting to me, where did Blagojevich get the idea that he was going to get nothing from except appreciation if there was no discussion of a quid pro quo? There's there's other characters who've entered into this, like the good doctor, and there might be others that are not involved directly in the Obama operation, but nonetheless seem to be taken by Blagojevich.
Well, it's possible. So what you're saying, it's possible Blagojevich may have asked somebody, for something in return, but whatever the message back was, it clearly was
Yeah.
You know, you just get our appreciation. So that doesn't implicate anybody on Obama's side.
No, except that the Obama report by Gregory Craig goes out of its way to say in each one of these segments of it explicitly there was no discussion of a quid pro quo or of any personal benefit for the governor. Well, if the governor's over on the one side having all kinds of conversations with his own people about what he wants out of this, and what we get out of the report is that nobody had a discussion about a benefit, and yet Blagojevich is saying, hey, they're going to give me nothing but appreciation. Where did he develop that sense? Where there had to be some conversation with somebody at which they said, hey, don't be talking to us about that kind of stuff. You're not going to be getting anything except our best wishes for doing the right thing when you pick the right person.
Hey, Karl, it's Rich. Merry Christmas. Thanks so much for being with us.
You bet. Thanks.
Karl, what everyone needs to remember about this report, of course, this is Obama aides taking the word of other Obama aides for what happened. This isn't a serious piece of investigative work. Now, it may be that nothing was actually untoward here on the Obama side, but Karl, can you imagine the press being treating us so consequential and showing such deference to an internal Bush team report over the last 8 years?
No, I don't. And look, here's one other thing. This is another example of the press management style of the Obama team. They issue it on a day when Obama is on vacation in Hawaii and unavailable for questioning, and Rahm Emanuel is on his way to Africa and unavailable, and Joe Biden, who obviously knows not a single thing of consequence about this, is the person who lays it out. And you know, there was an interesting article this weekend in the New York Times Magazine by Mark Lebovich, and it was a profile of Robert Gibbs. And it was interesting, the mindset of the Obama people. They said, look, we got good press because we deserve good press. No, they got good press because the media slobbered all over them. They had a thrill up their collective leg, to quote Chris Matthews. And there was almost a certain arrogance in that.
Yeah.
They talk about transparency and openness, and yet Robert Gibbs also talked about his theory of dealing with the press was the drawbridge. You put the bridge down, you raise the bridge up. We had the bridge given down today in a brief fashion, but they raised the bridge back up. There are lots of questions still remaining here. None of it is going to lead to anything, I think, unethical or illegal, but you know, what would have happened 15 days ago if the president-elect came out and said, of course we were concerned about who the replacement would be in the United States Senate, and of course we had discussions about it, and of course I sent Rahm Emanuel to have it, but I never heard about any kind of quid pro quo and certainly wouldn't have responded to it, and we'll get back to you within a day or two as to what kind of contacts we had.
Karl, really quickly,
transparent.
Really quickly, I have about a minute left. One incident you didn't mention in your brilliant analysis up front, there's an interesting exchange where a union official goes to Valerie Jarrett and says, look, the governor is considering appointing you to the Senate, and he wants to be HHS secretary, which she dismissed out of hand. And they say there's no suggestion of a quid pro quo. That kind of made me raise my eyebrows a little bit.
Rich, I think you've got the point at which the message may have been sent back to Blagojevich. We ain't going to be playing any games like that, and it may have been in the conversation between Valerie Jarrett and the president of the Illinois SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. I think you may have gotten the point at which Blagojevich started to get the message, hey, I'm not going to get anything out of this. I loved how both of them said, no quid pro quo here. I want to be HHS out here and appoint you. Exactly.
All right, Karl, stay right there. More with Karl Rove after.